All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a great guest here today, our good friend JJ Dower from down in Tennessee. Excited to have you, JJ. And I always enjoy talking to you, JJ. So I'm hoping that you'll just open up here in a minute, just tell us some good stories and a little bit about the auction industry. You think you can do that?
Well, I can try. I don't know what you'll get out of it, but we'll talk about it.
First off, tell us a little bit about you, your family, how in the world did you get into this wild world auction business?
Well, that's that's a story I never dreamed I would be in. I can assure you that. My story is I married into the auction business. My wife Tracy, her dad started our company in the 50s, 1957, and so when I showed up in the 80s, I really didn't plan on being in the auction business, but I was in business, owned 3 or 4 businesses with a partner. We had the typical little partnership dispute that you have, and so I was needing something to do, and I was going to buy another business, and he said, "Why don't you come to work here?" And so for the last 40 years, that's what I've been doing, and now I've been doing it so long I don't think anybody would hire me to do anything else. So
now, so Hack is the one that started the business.
That's right. My father-in-law, Hack Ayers, he started the company in the 50s. It's funny how, of course, I watched, knowing you guys, watching you and Devin grow up in the business and watching you all take over your daddy's company and how the changes have happened in your own company. Well, it's the same in ours. He started our company in 57, and his story is kind of crazy too. He was 19 years old, married, working for the state of Tennessee on a survey crew, and his preacher said, "Hey, Hack, why don't you buy half of this auction company with me?" So he did, and his mother-in-law about died when she found out her son-in-law had quit a government job to buy a half interest in Lafayette Auction Company for $1,500. And so he starts out selling Friday night sales. That's what they did. Well, his preacher was the auctioneer. He calls him one day and said, "Hack, you're going to have to buy me out of business. I'm leaving town with one of the women in the congregation." And so
Wow.
now Hack's a 19-year-old kid who owns 100% of an auction company. And so he hires an auctioneer. Well, the auctioneer shows up drunk on Friday night. So it's all just a comedy of errors for him. So he went to auction school and learned how to be an auctioneer. And so then he the business kind of changed from there. And so his original business was a cool deal. I think we didn't do it when I came along, but it was a cool deal. He would go to Cincinnati, Ohio on Monday morning, and they had auction sales all day selling antiques. Well, he would buy antiques, stuff them in a bus with no seats in it. That was his transportation. Bring them back home, set them up, sell them on Friday night. And back then you had 2 weeks to cover your check that you'd wrote on Monday that wasn't any good. Mm-hmm. And so that was his business model. He sold every Friday night, but he owned all the merchandise, so he learned how to trade.
Okay.
And that's kind of where it went from there.
Yeah. And now he really grew the business. I mean, Hack was a risk taker, wasn't he?
So that's exactly right. And so because he learned how to trade, and if you can trade, you'll make a living doing anything you can do if you learn how to trade. And he learned how to trade. So he wanted to start selling, got in politics, and was doing the Friday night selling, had some, was a county court clerk, and it was a state representative. But he finally decided he wanted to get serious. Well, nobody was having real estate auctions in our part of the country. The only real estate sale he'd ever seen was by 2 guys out of West Virginia come to town and sold a guy's subdivision. So he thought, well, that's my ticket. I'm going to develop subdivisions and sell them at auction. So he and his brother-in-law had been selling used mobile homes, and they'd gathered up a little cash. They found a farm, and listen to how they structured this deal. No way you could do it today. They got the bank to loan them 80%. They got the farmer to carry 20% on a second, and they took what little cash they had and bought a dozer and hired a guy to build their roads. And then they had enough money to put the gravel down on the roads, but they didn't have enough money to put the water line in. So they had the water line delivered on Friday, the day before the sale, and put out on the ground so people could see they was going to put it in. And they get up there, and Hack's a deeply religious man, one of the best Christian men I ever known. it starts to rain. And he said, looks up, Scotty said, oh God, please, not today. And the rain just stopped. So then they get up there to have the sale and didn't know what to expect. And their father-in-law was a good man, like my father-in-law was a good man, and he learned from a good man. Hack's father-in-law had 5 daughters and 5 son-in-laws. So he always kind of took care of those boys because he had girls his whole life. Well, he shows up at the auction sale that day and buys like 7 or 8 lots, afraid the boys are going to fall on their face. And then it was on. That deal worked. They
just kept doing it,
They kept doing it. And
That's
so
great.
when I showed up in the 80s, there's only so many subdivisions in Campbell County, Tennessee that you can build. And they were getting hard. He was selling 300 and 400 lot subdivisions, and they would walk the whole thing. Can you imagine getting 300 or 400 people to walk a subdivision?
Walking the lots.
And they all had coats and ties on in the pictures. And it was always Memorial Day, July the 4th, Labor Day.
Warm weather.
Yeah. And so you couldn't get that to happen today. And so luckily, because of the NAA, he finally discovered that you could set a tent up. And then he finally discovered high bidder choice instead of selling 300 lots one at a time. And then he finally discovered multi-parse. You know, it used to be in the old days, and you remember this, you'd sell them, group them back together, sell them as a whole, and everybody'd leave mad at the end of the day.
Right.
Well, now you don't have to do that. Multi-parse fix that. So, but when I showed up, we were doing, for the first few years, we were doing 10 or 12 sales a year, and that was it, auction-wise. But they were big sales, and so we were always getting them ready. Well, and then the 90s happened, and we're like, okay, we got to figure out something else, and we got a break. The court sales in our part of the world had been done by the clerk on the courthouse steps for 100 years.
Right.
Well, the clerk finally gave us a chance to start selling those sales. So now we do 50 to 60 sales a year for the court. Right. So that built a business.
Yeah.
And then the next evolution, and this happened for you guys and us and everybody else in the industry, was online bidding. I'm going tomorrow night to a country club to auction off of Calcutta, and I asked them, I said, how many teams do you have? They said 54, and I said, I've not sold 54 items in 6 years.
Yeah, you've been mostly online, haven't you?
I've had one auction sale 2 years ago that was about a $2.5 million sale, and I could tell when I met with a guy that everybody else had met with him had pitched him online only, and he wanted a live sale, so we had a live sale. My staff about quit me because we'd forgot what it's like to
it's a little work,
to get all that done in a short period of time. And then our PAs didn't work. I had to go buy 2 new PAs. We hadn't used them so long they didn't even work. So that's the only live sale that I've had in the last 2 years.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Who all's in the business now, and how in your business, how has that progressed?
So, it's kind of funny. So your Uncle Sam had called Hack when first bought the auction company out in London. What was his name? Ray?
Ray Humphrey.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when he bought Ray out, and so I thought, well, that's a great way to expand. So in the 90s, I decided I was going to go and open another office up in another market. And so that left my brother-in-law, Paul, at the LaFayette office, and my sister-in-law, Debbie, and Cody both work in that office. And then my wife, Tracy, works with me, and our kids are somewhat involved. Throughout the year, they help with different sales.
Your son-in-law's got involved in, and
so
he's doing something pretty cool. Boats, is that right?
That's right. So he's got the bug. If it wasn't for making a living part, he'd probably be in the auction industry. He's too busy trying to make a living. It's hard to make a living in the auction industry. But yeah, he's selling boats, and now he's starting to do some the equipment sales that you boys are doing, and I talked to him about a sale on the way down, on the way up here that a lawyer had just called me about, and I was going to let him work on that because during the summer he's got some free time, and so he's good help in the summer. He's not much help in the spring.
So let me ask you, in some of the greatest times of your life, I'm sure this has got to be the case. You spent a little time in Kentucky.
Right.
Tell us about your time in Kentucky.
So I've had a good time in Kentucky, and I've got some good stories about Kentucky. So right out of high school, I went to Georgetown, and I played football up there for a semester, and that was more being like in what I would call northern Kentucky, because all my teammates were from Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on, I went to Union College and I played ball with some boys from Rockcastle County.
Yeah,
and so when
you know a couple of those boys.
You do, and when you know Burley and Scotty and Big Jim Earl, you know Rockcastle County.
Yes,
So that's a lot
yes.
like home. And so I still have good memories of Kentucky. And of course, where I live, if you don't like Kentucky, you better move, because half of the world is right there with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And truly, in my county, part of the county will be Kentucky fans, just like they will be Tennessee fans, the ones that really live on the border.
Right. Yeah. We give each other a hard time, but I remember me and Rebecca went to a football game with you and Tracy once, and we sat beside the band. We were right close to the band, and it was one of the years that Kentucky maybe was not great on defense. Y'all scored like 40 points. We kept hearing that stinking
band.
Oh, it was awful. Rocky Top.
But it was a good game.
Well, if
you're a Kentucky fan, that's a good game.
Yeah. Hey, I do think we're going to have a little. I'm sort of excited about the Will Steinhair.
Oh, I think you'll be real excited, because he looks like he can do the job.
Anyways, we got to talk a little bit of fun stuff too in this podcast, because otherwise people don't want to listen. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about an organization that you're the founder of. You and two other guys called MarkNet Alliance. So tell us about how in the world did MarkNet Alliance get started? Tell us a little bit about that foundational stuff.
Yes, it's kind of one of these deals that sometimes, if you step back and follow a path that's laid out for you, it can kind of just happen. And when you try to push the pieces into the puzzle, it doesn't work. A round peg won't go in a square hole. It just doesn't happen. But so MarkNet never really intended to be MarkNet. I was friends. The auction industry is a pretty small world, really. Mm-hmm. And so I'm at a winter ski seminar that the NAA was putting on, and I was on the platform to speak, and a guy named Kurt Almond was going to speak. I didn't know Kurt. Kind of knew who his family was because they came to the NAA every year, but I didn't really know him. But he gets up and gives this talk. At that time, he was selling these toy tractors, and he still sells some of them, but that's not his go-to thing now. But he was doing them online, and it just amazed me, because I'd seen some simulcast auctions, but I truly hadn't seen the online-only selling deal. So I was curious. So when it was over, I'd talk to him. We just became buddies. So we'd see each other at conference and show, and then one year Tracy goes to CAI at the same time you went.
Yeah, we went together. Yeah.
So Kurt and Chris, my other partner, were both on the AMI board at that time, when we had two separate boards, and they were speaking there at Bloomington. And so I had told a story about going broke in a fast food deal Tracy and I had, that the lawyer told me that I'd be better off taking my money and throwing it on the floor and rolling around in it. When I got tired, light it up and burn it in the fireplace, I'd have more fun. Well, he was right. So I had told that story at this seminar that I gave about, what that experience was like. Well, about the time Tracy went to CAI, I had just got involved in the same type fast food deal again. So Almond couldn't wait to call me and say, hey, how much money are you wanting to burn up? Well, this time it was about 100 and some thousand. I wish I'd burned it up in the fireplace too.
So the restaurant business has not been good for JJ.
Not for me.
Okay.
It doesn't work for me. And so we laughed about it. Well, out of the blue one day, we've been trading real estate for a lot of years, so we got a big inventory of real estate. So I thought, we could take our own inventory and have online sales. So I just called Almond, and this is how crazy it is. And I said, hey man, you think I could sell some of my real estate online only? You think it would work? he said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, nothing. He said, you want to come to St. Louis and talk about that? And I said, yeah. I got in the car, drove to St. Louis. I met with Kurt, Chris Pratt, and Tommy Rao. And we just talked about auction stuff. Well, conference and show was coming up. We said, let's do this at conference and show. Let's spend one day together.
So this had been what, 2005-ish?
Yeah, that's exactly about what it would have been in
Okay.
05. And so we spent that summer, we did it. And so the next fall we said, let's do this again. So we got together again. And Kurt had brought up, he had developed some software, a project management software that helped run his organization. And it was really kind of cool and ahead of its time. And he said, do you think people would want to be in a group? The only group that existed at that time that I knew of was Transon.
Right.
And I said, I can't sell that because my father-in-law's pretty proud of his name, and we're not going to be Transon or Bubba's Brew. I mean, we're heirs.
Right.
And so I thought, nah, probably not. And so we kind of left it at that. Well, I went to Lake Tahoe and then to Reno with the NAA on one of these ski deals, and it was AARE. Well, this guy from Kentucky had just went to California and opened up an auction franchise called PAX, Pacific Auction Exchange.
I sort of remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I flew Delta out there. Your boy from Kentucky flew a private jet from LA to Reno, and then flew it back home. And I thought, man, can get on a private jet for one person. There might be something in this. So I got to talking to him about what they were doing, and what they were doing, there's still some of them out there, but it didn't sustain because the rule was you had to charge 10% buyer's premium, and it had to be absolute. And they were selling franchises to stockbrokers or insurance,
Right.
They weren't coming to, like me and you learned in the family business, we cut our teeth there with somebody to guide you.
Right.
Well, these guys were being through to the wolves. So it ended up not playing out, but I called Almond from there and I said, it could work. And so I told him about, talking with Chuck, was the guy from PAX. And so we actually said, okay, let's try this. So Kurt, Chris, and we invited Tommy Rao to come to Atlanta and meet with this PAX guy. And he wanted to do a deal with us, but he wanted it to be the Pacific Auction Exchange, and we were to own about that much of the deal. And I said, that's not going to work. First of all, we live on
we're far
Atlantic.
from Pacific, aren't we?
We're not close to the Pacific. How am I going to sell that one? And I said, that won't work. So that's kind of how Marknet Alliance's actual founding name is Atlantic something. And so that's kind of where that came from. We had to file, we made the decision that day that we were going onward. So we had to, okay, what do we do now? So first thing we had to do was create a corporation.
Yeah. and it's really grown a lot. I mean, you all started with like 4 of you, like sort of brainstorming this deal. And
so yeah, and so that was another funny story. And I laugh about it because the world has come full circle. JT Rao is now one of the partners in Marknet. Well, his dad, Tommy, could have been a partner just like Kurt, Chris, and I at the beginning, and he didn't want to do it. He said, "No, I don't want to." So we said, "Okay, we're going to miss you." So we said, "Okay, what do we do now?" So we got to have this meeting. So we invited 10 or 12, maybe there was 12 of us the first time, to St. Louis, or maybe Indianapolis. Can't remember. Indianapolis, maybe. And so we're there, and we thought, okay, if half of them will sign up, we can pay. We had 2 employees, and we can pay these 2 guys if half the people sign up. Well, everybody signed up, so we was like, okay, what do we do now? Well, first thing we discovered, we didn't really want to be a franchise, but if you walk like a duck and quack like a duck, you're a duck.
That's right.
And so we had to get licensed in 50 states to be able to sell franchises. We had to hire a high dollar lawyer to create.
Oh yeah.
And you've seen all those documents.
Oh yeah.
And we were going to sell stock, so that's a whole other thing. So we start this deal like in January, but we can't collect a dime till July. So for 7 months, we've got 2 employees and
all these attorney fees.
And all these attorney fees and no income.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured out how to take care of that, and we started, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been ebbs and flows. What are you boys, about 70-some companies?
I think we're real close to 75 right now.
Okay, so that's a great number. I mean, we started with 12. Some of those guys are still around, and it's been a lot of fun watching the growth and actually watching how these auction businesses have transformed. I've saw companies that were mom and pops and were probably making a decent living, and that was about it. Now they're big companies, big deal.
I think it's a lot about the power of sharing and
Yes.
working together. So if somebody from here calls me and says, "Hey, I've got 100 acres down in Tennessee, how can you help me?"
Yeah.
Well, I know how to help you. I just pick up the phone, call JJ or whoever or whoever, whatever area it's in. Yeah.
So you're exactly right. So this morning I had a phone call about some stuff that wouldn't be in my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, I know a guy. So I made a phone call. I put the 2 people together. Now I'll get part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't really the guy to do this deal.
Right.
And that is the beauty. My buddy Chris Pratt, one of the partners from South Carolina, who just recently passed away, Chris was really good about one-line statement. So there's a couple of those he's told me at different times in my life that has really made a difference. Our company, unlike your company and what you've done, we were always really leery of people hiring auctioneers and them knowing what we did and how we did it. Now, we've had real estate agents go lower through the years, but we always were protective of that part of the business because that was the family deal. We didn't want anybody else in the model. But Chris taught me something right there that is not the way to look at that. And so I figured out how to expand my business without expanding my staff. And I've used MarkNet to do that. MarkNet does 100% of my marketing. So I don't have to have a marketing team. MarkNet provides me bidders and other companies for information. So that's my use of MarkNet. But what Pratt taught me was the classic example, what you learned in kindergarten, learn how to share. Something is a whole lot better than all of nothing any day of the week.
Yeah, it's about exposure too. For instance, if we're working as a team, we can get a lot more exposure than if I'm just a single auctioneer here in Somerset and I don't have 75 partners across the country. So if I'm selling it really, when it comes to unique stuff, if I got a very unique car, a unique tractor, or unique gun, or even a unique piece of lake property, me and you, we sometimes Lake Cumberland versus Norris Lake. I mean, there's a lot of the same bidders we have.
So that's right. And most people will drive 60 to 90 miles to pick up an item you sell, or they'll know what you're selling. Mm-hmm. So last night, we had 3 sales. One of my bidders that bought a $100,000 house came to me off the email from MarkNet. And I didn't email about that deal. We sold $1 million boat storage deal last night. So I did the MarkNet email blast for that. Well, this guy seen that email blast, went to my website, and ended up buying another house I sold last night. Didn't buy that, but he bought a house. So
it's really unique how people get webbed together. Yeah. So let's change topics just a little bit again. You mentioned, Kurt was the founder, Chris is the founder, and you, and we just lost Chris. Probably the most interesting funeral I've ever been to in my life. I mean, I start thinking about Chris Pratt, and they have the the most interesting man in the world. I'm like, they have not met Chris Pratt.
Right.
Chris was one of the most unique guys in the world. And
one of his buddies, oldest friends, said it so perfect that Chris had a way of making the irregular look regular and the regular look irregular.
Yeah.
And that was Chris.
Yes.
I mean, he was just here, there, and everywhere. But nobody loved as deep and cared as deep about the auction industry and about people as he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he's all in. When he was on your team,
he's
all in.
Yeah. So one of the cool stories there at the cemetery they gave was, so Chris would go to camp with these kids, and they would go out fishing, and they talked about there's one huge fish that everybody's been trying to catch for years and years, and so Chris goes out early, him and a bunch of kids, and there's a kid goes out and catches one, and they just hear Chris just yelling and screaming like it's the greatest. They honestly thought they'd caught the monster in there, and the other guy rolls up to the boat, and the kid's got this little fish, about the size of your hand, but Chris made everybody feel special, didn't he?
And that was Chris.
Yeah.
He was like, I can tell stories. The greatest memories of telling stories about other people and things they've done in my last 20 years of existence all involve him.
Yeah, Chris had some good
He was a man. He was a man-made story. Just watching him. If you just sat back and watch my boy work, there was a story there to be had.
Yeah, and I think really the auction industry, when you look around, there's a lot of people that love people.
Yeah.
And that's if you don't really like people, this is probably not your deal. But I think about Hack was a great
He
example.
loved people.
He would love Steve Lewis and his dad. I mean, you start looking around some of the people that have been before us, and the way they not only just love other auctioneers, but they love the community that they live in. I think it's something different about the auction industry, and if you really want to be successful, maybe that's one of the things you got to dive into.
The thing about the auction industry, you have to be a lot of things. You wear a lot of hats. Well, you're an auctioneer, okay? Well, if you're selling real estate, you got to be a real estate broker, an appraiser. You got to know the value of things. You got to know how to market the asset. Then you got to be a family counselor and a healer. A lot of times in situations, there's people turning to you that the most valuable asset they'll ever have in their life is they gave to you. That's a big responsibility. And it's different and it might be a $20,000 house, a $200,000 house, a $2 million house, or a $20 million house. But either way, you owe that person the same care that you would give regardless of the size of the scale. And so you have to be their friend, their counselor, and occasionally you got to be the tough guy and say, hey, listen, it's not going to work. This is what we got to do. But that's what makes what we do really cool, because it's a different deal every day.
I tell a lot of our agents and other auctioneers that, we're not trying to build a 5-year business. We want to build another 50-year business. And if you're engaged in the community and you're doing what's right and you're doing all those things that you just said, and you start thinking about, things that Chris has done, Kurt's done, Hack's done, it's really, that's sort of the auction industry, isn't it?
And so, what you said about the business model, not 5, but 50 or 500. So in the last 2 years, our business model has revolved all the way back to the people that Hack really took care of. So, when Hack passed away, his brother-in-law and a friend of theirs from high school, they owned some commercial property together. They put some subdivisions in, they kept some commercial property. Well, all 3 of them passed away. So we liquidated all that stuff that was created during his deal.
Right.
And we had several big sales. Well, then one of his old business partners and the guy's kids, we grew up with their kids. All of us grew up with their kids. Last year we sold, their estate was a real sizable estate. That was another deal, that a 50-year relationship. Well, then my best buyer of Scott County of all time. He'd been coming to our sales for 40 years. Started every auction. We had a real estate sale. He gave the opening bid at every sale.
Oh, really?
Every sale. And he's a good trader. Well, he passed away. So last year we've been selling a lot of stuff for that estate. And then we had same thing. We had another large deal we did last year, $4.5 million deal for one estate. That the guy had been buying land for me for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And now he's passed away and they're liquidating. So that's the beauty of this business. It's if you stay around it long enough, you know, the guy that maybe gave you your first deal might be his last deal might be you handling it.
Right.
And the guy that you helped out with buying his first house will someday be one of the best customers you have. And that's
sort of the
circle.
And again, if you're taking care of them over and over again, you're supporting the community. They see you out there. I think that's probably there's a lot of business plans, but being community oriented and taking care of people is probably the biggest.
Almond used to have a saying that is spot on. All auction sales are local. And so now you may travel, you're no longer just in Mount Vernon, Kentucky,
right,
but you're still pretty local wherever you're at. I may go to Chicago today and sell a piece of property. That's going to be a local sale when I get there. The
right.
guy that's coming from Chicago is probably going to be the buyer.
Probably going to buy it, yeah.
And the guy that owned it was probably from Chicago. So everything gets local. So if you have a local community that you're involved in and engaged in, and people recognize you in the community, you've got a leg up. Even right. in today's world of, you know, I don't know how it is at your office, but when I first started, we had people coming in the office all day long looking at our wall of inventory, what we had for sale. Well,
now it's online, isn't it? Yeah.
We probably don't see 2 people a day that come in the office
mm-hmm.
unless they just happen to be coming by and want to sell low. And it used to be all day long. So the world has changed.
Yes. So with a changing world, so I know there's some auction schools going on right now. If you were going to give advice to a brand new, like just got done with auction school, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that just finished auction?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, I think if you're just Joe Blow off the street, your daddy's not an auctioneer, your uncle's not an auctioneer, you're just wanting to get in the auction industry, I would say saddle up with somebody that's in the business that will teach you something about the business and let you learn on the job. Because otherwise, if you get out there and just hang your own shingle up, if somebody is crazy enough to hire you to do a sale, what are you going to do?
Right.
You know, everybody's got to learn somewhere. And I heard there's an auctioneer in Tennessee named Philip Traylor, does a fantastic business, good guy, good big collar, good guy all the way around. Make the statement about when he first got started selling autos. He's known in that circle now. But when he first went to work, it was at Murfreesboro, and he was going to college there at MTSU. And he drove cars in the parking lot. He parked cars. He did whatever they wanted. He was available.
Trying to get his foot in the door.
That's what I would tell a new auctioneer. Choose whatever avenue you want to go down, but do whatever you have to. Don't judge it based on what's this pay and what do I do. Don't ask that question. Show up and be there.
Yeah. So now you were NAA president for a while too, right?
Yep.
Tell us about that.
So,
when was that? And
I got elected to the board in 2008. I was probably president in 2013. Yeah, chairman of the board in 2014. Yeah, so I left the NAA board in 2014. And so, I mean, you talk about a great experience for me. And those two experiences with MarkNet and the NAA kind of happened for me at the same time. And so between traveling for MarkNet and traveling with the NAA to state conventions, I was on the road a lot, but I met a lot of great people and, stayed in, at people's houses and went to their business, been in their business and ate with their families and it really helped me after I was done in the auction industry, because by being involved, I seen what guys all over the country was doing. And so it was a springboard for me to learn more about the industry and give a little bit back to the industry.
So one time you gave me some advice. And you know,
Yeah,
it's scary.
It's
scary, yeah. But I do. I don't know. We were talking about something, and I was stressed out about something, and you said, "Son, you ain't got no problems if it's just a money problem." And you went back to one of your daughters, I guess, when they were a baby, had cancer, and you were like, "Matt, got to figure out that, hey, business is business. Forget about that. Life's good." Kind of a deal.
And that's true. And it, so our youngest daughter, Allie, when on my 28th birthday, it started out like a great day. One of the biggest sales I'd made was that morning. I get a call on the radio, back with no cell phones in those days, two-way radio, from Hack telling me to stop at the doctor's office. Tracy and the baby were there. So I go into the doctor's office. The doctor, who's been a longtime family friend, his kids grew up with us, just a great man. He was crying. Tracy's crying. The baby's crying, and I got no idea what's going on. And so I suspected, based what I thought was going to be wrong. So at that day and time, the things that I thought were important really got prioritized, and they can't eat you. If your problem is just money, there's hopes of getting money. But there's people out there today that have all the money in the bank that they could ever spend, but their health has failed them, and money won't fix it. Now that's a problem. When money won't fix it, it's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Now your girls are both.
Oh yeah,
they're doing great now.
Both my kids are healthy. Both of them went to auction school, and both of them probably would have been really good auctioneers. But I really kind of discouraged that because, and then I think they got a little discouraged by watching me get out of bed every Saturday morning and go to work and work all day, put tents up and down. That probably didn't help a whole lot when you make your kids do that on a Saturday. But they both probably could have made a really good living doing this. But one's a lawyer and one's a pharmacist, and they're doing okay, and I think it's probably a better choice.
Now the one that's an attorney, she's a little bit in the real estate industry.
That's right.
She helps with.
So she's involved in the whole industry. So she's the lobbyist for the Tennessee Association of Realtors. So much like Kentucky.
Yeah.
In Kentucky, if you send a question into the legal hotline, they provide you free legal advice. She's the person in Tennessee that's responding to that deal. And she also lobbies for the Tennessee Auctioneers, which we now have online auction law and legislation that we never had before, because basically she was able to spearhead that through. Before, there was really no rules. You could have sold anything you wanted, pretty much done anything you wanted. It was the wild west. Right. In the online world for us.
So if somebody's going to find some of your auctions in Tennessee, how would they do that?
So I hope they find them. So they can go to www.AyersAuctionRealEstate.com and spend money, buy early and buy often is what I tell
early and often, yes.
That's what I tell everybody.
Tell me this. What does a day in the life of JJ look like today?
Gosh,
and maybe how has that evolved over the years?
Yeah, so that's a great deal about how the world has changed. When I first started, we were coats and ties every day.
Oh yeah, Dad would probably fuss at me for wearing this.
Exactly.
20 years ago. Yeah,
exactly. And so now the wardrobe deal is changed. That part's changed. And used to be we came to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, stayed at the office till 5:30, and worked every Saturday. Well, now, because of the online world, you really work 20, you think it's better about going to the office, but if you sat and looked at your phone and your emails and your texts, the amount of hours you're working now is a whole lot more than I thought I was working back 6 days a week.
If I've got this on me, I'm on call.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So what has changed, it's cool for a guy that has a family is you can be home and do a lot of those things. You know, you don't have to be grinding it out behind your desk. So that part's good. But when I was raising my family, when we sat down to eat dinner at night, there wasn't nobody going to call me. People didn't call your home phone like they do your cell phone. They think that cell phone's an open invitation to call all day, you know. But they wouldn't bother you on your landline back when you just had a landline. And so that has been pretty, you know, that's been the biggest change is just the fact that how big the world is and how small it is.
Yes.
I mean, we've sold property especially since the pandemic, to people from California, Washington, Oregon. You know, we always sold to the people in the north that was trying to come south. But now the world is opened up everywhere because they can look at it on a box.
Right.
You know, the people, we had 3 sales last night. One guy bought a piece of property he'd never seen, bought it based off of a box, looking at it. The other guy knew about the property, but really didn't call and ask a lot of questions because he had
all the information
he needs.
Yeah.
Now think about how that's changed. In the old days, your only communication with a potential buyer was the phone call, and you better keep him on there as long as you could to give him all the information. Because where was he going to get it? A brochure that you mailed to his house, maybe. Or off out of the newspaper ad in the local newspaper. And you talk about the world changing. Our local paper that came out on Thursday was our MLS forever. All the real estate companies had full page ads.
Yeah.
And all the auction companies, full page ads.
It's changed a whole
now
lot.
It's Facebook and Google.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. If you're not on Facebook or Google,
And
are you even in business?
I feel like I'm 180 years old, how those old timers talk about walking to school both ways barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the world, in my lifetime, the world of technology,
It's drastically, and it sounds like all this AI stuff is going to get even more.
Yeah. So think about for us in the auction world. You go out and catalog an auction sale now. You stick your phone up there. AI writes that description of that chair.
Mm-hmm.
AI tells you everything about that chair, who made it, what it cost. I mean, you can find out anything you want. I saw a deal yesterday. I had found a piece of property that I had no idea I don't sell a lot of industrial property. I had no idea what that industrial site would be worth. Let's put all the data into AI. You ought to have seen the report.
Oh yeah, it's amazing what all it can spit out. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. So there's some interesting stuff there for sure. Is any advice, just personal advice that you give people that are out here listening about maybe investing in the real estate market?
Yeah. So I kind of there's a couple of things. My college days, I belonged to a fraternity, and the only thing that fraternity ever said that's really stuck with me, it was the F's. It was your faith, it was your family, it was your frat, and it was your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So as I got older, that's changed a little bit. It's my faith, it's my family, and then it's my friends, and then it's my finances after that. It's
Mm-hmm.
Because the finances, if you take care of all the other stuff, the finances will take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. But the best, my father-in-law, the one knowledge that he gave me that works every time is other people's money. And investing, especially if you're fortunate enough to be able to invest in some real estate, is the greatest way in the world to build wealth and stability and increase your finances using other people's money. You borrow the money, some tenant pays the payment for you, and you're overseeing the project. And if you get enough of those projects going, your golden years will be golden.
All right. So if we're traveling to Old Niner or La Follette,
yeah.
So we one important thing, where do we eat when we go down there?
That's a great question. So if you're coming to La Follette, the local spot would be Charlie's Pizza.
Okay.
It's been there it's a great story about build a product, build a brand, and keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's on its third owner.
Oh, wow.
From the guy who originally started it. Yeah. And he originally started, he brought a partner in later, sold out to that partner, and then that partner, who's now my age, is sold out to another young man. But that business has had 3 owners and still thrives every day because they do what they do.
Okay. All right.
And they have not, it's unlike how many times you've seen a fast food joint that's one day selling fast food hamburgers, next day they're trying to sell chicken sandwich or barbecue sandwiches or whatever. Well, they have done what they do, and
So is it pizza, or is it?
So it's all that. So it's pizza, spaghetti, lasagna, sandwiches, the full deal. But their pizza has always been the core.
Okay.
And that's that's what you're going to get when you go. And it was the same 50 years ago as it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yes, it is.
And you got to give it to McDonald's. You can go to a McDonald's anywhere in the world, and that Big Mac will taste about the same as it did right here in Somerset, Kentucky.
Yep. There's not a whole lot of variation.
No, and that's why they're still in business.
Yep. That's good stuff. I guess we're going to have to close out. You got any big plans for the summer? You got a lot of auctions coming up, or is Tracy making you go somewhere?
So my big plans now is trying not to put too many dots on my phone. When you get to be my age, the most depressing thing you can do is look when you got all those dots and you got 8 appointments today.
Okay, all right.
I'm trying not to have that many dots in my life.
Just a couple appointments.
enough to keep the lights on. That's the amount of dots I'm looking for.
Now you're getting to go to National Auctioneers Association conventions in San
Antonio, Texas. That's right. I'll be there, and it'll be nice and toasty in San Antonio in July.
Yes. It'll be a good trip. That's what. Mid-July.
Yeah, and so that's always something to look forward to, and I'll look forward to the fact that you and JT and Robert now will be standing at that trade show booth every day for a week instead of me standing at that trade show booth. I'll enjoy seeing you.
Yeah, well,
I'll come by and say hello.
Do that. So, well, JJ, thank you for coming. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate you just coming talking about the auction industry, and hopefully Jacob can make us look halfway decent on here.
Sound better than we look.
We both of us probably better. We have a sort of a.
We got a radio gig, not a TV gig.
Yeah, not a TV gig. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, buddy.